Okay, so today is Wednesday, May 13th, and my name is Amy. I'm the CEO of Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce, and we are sitting with two panelists today talking about insurance and moving forward through COVID and insurance liabilities. Thank you to Stephen Weidenbach from American Family Home Insurance and Jerry Lale from, oh my goodness, Jerry.
Farmers Insurance.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, come on. Ouch, ouch.
Yes, sorry.
All right.
It showed the world that I am human. I can't remember everything.
I believe it. I believe it.
So usually the way that we work this is I will ask for just introductions and I will call out the name that's listed on your screen. So if we can start with the introduction, give us your business that you're representing, just so that the panelists are aware of who's on the call, so that they can maybe message their answers towards your business or the businesses that are represented here. This is being recorded and we will be posting this in the future onto our social media page and also a link into our website. So if you haven't been to our website, it's Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce, and all of these recordings are listed there. So today we're talking with two panelist members about insurance regarding COVID-19 and the future. So Elise, if you can introduce yourself and the business you're representing today.
To unmute. I'm Elise Warren. I'm the Executive Director of the Clymer Museum and Gallery.
Thank you for joining. Danielle Bricker.
Good morning. I'm Danielle and I am the owner of Hotel Roslyn.
Thank you. Allie.
Hi, I am the HRIS and Benefits Manager at Hope Source.
Thank you. Ken.
I'm Ken Grannon, the Director of Hospice France.
Penny. We'll skip over Penny real quick. Carly.
Good morning, I'm Carly Jensen with Heritage Bank.
Penny, can you introduce yourself or I can? Penny Blackburn is with Flying Horseshoe Ranch out of Cleellum.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I would like to just give each panelist to introduce themselves and a little bit about your business and the products that you offer. We did give opportunity for some pre-questions, which the panelists have received, so they're able to answer some of those questions, but we will start with Steve Weidenbach. If you can just introduce yourself and a little bit about your business and products.
Yeah, so my name is Steve Weidenbach. I own the American Family Insurance Agency here. We're right by the post office in Ellensburg, and we opened in June of 2011. And we also recently expanded. We have a location in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho now as well. I have 10 team members, 4 that work in my Ellensburg office, 3 that work in my Coeur d'Alene office, and 3 that work from home that all live in Kittitas County. My work from home employees they worked from home before it was cool to work from home.
Jerry?
My name is Jerry Lale. I'm a farmer's insurance agent here in Ellensburg. I do auto, commercial, life, retirement. And I have been here, I guess I should catch up with Steve. I've been here since 2006. I am one of those people that came here to go to Central in 1975 and never left. So I enjoy the community. I have only 2 people working for me right now. I'm here and then 2 remote.
Well, thank you again, gentlemen, for joining us on this opportunity here. We'd usually just jump right into the pre-questions unless you had something that you wanted to talk before we got into that. Okay. So can I get business insurance coverage, such as business owner's policy, after a coronavirus related loss occurs?
Jerry, I'll go first and I'll let you fill in the blanks for me. So one thing that's very common and one of the difficult parts about coronavirus and loss is you need a covered peril. And so the perils that you hear about all the time are water, fire, theft, wind, hail, those sort of things. And in every base policy, what pandemic or virus is typically an exclusion. And so there are, I've seen some research that says a few different carriers had a purchasable virus policy that had a total of 0 people that purchased it. So what that means is effectively no one had coverage for something that would cover this. That being said, a good handful of people have made claims for it. And the reason why they made claims is at one point in time, especially very early on in March-ish, as things were starting to close, there was some rumors and conversation about that the government would do bailouts via business income coverage. So so people started making claims through their insurer for business income coverage, even though the peril wasn't covered. And there was conversations back then before PPP came out about coverages being paid through that. Now, I haven't heard anything else about that. That really slowed down after both phase 1 and phase 2 of PPP came out. But we haven't seen many things covered, even though there has been a number of claims related to that. But the claims were all because they thought in the back end that insurers were going to be asked to pay business income, and then the insurers were going to go back to the government for that money for business income, but they went a different route with how they paid it. Jerry, do you want to correct me if you have anything different or add anything to that?
No, I would just say that I had commercial customers had the same issue, but farmers came out fairly early with the fact that what Steve said, we don't even offer it as an endorsement. The coronavirus as a pandemic, it wasn't something that you can underwrite for. And like Steve, I think there's a couple of companies that offer it, but Farmers doesn't in any way. If it's a named peril like a fire, that stops you from running your business. A flood or a broken water pipe, that stops you from operating your business. And then everything kicks in. But in this case of a coronavirus, we don't have coverage for it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I'm not saying American Family does.
I didn't say he did. I mean, some companies do. I saw the same thing you did, and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, there were some kind of outlying carriers. Yeah. So basically what we're saying is that there's not anything that creates real coverage for that. Now, that said, part 2 of the question, maybe even better answer to your question is, will this affect my insurance going forward? That's going to matter carrier to carrier if you made that claim. And what the few carriers I've talked to about it say that it will in no way negatively affect they call it a claim without payment. That claim without payment would not affect their insurance going forward. But if you haven't already done that, I don't believe it's advantageous for you to go ahead and make that claim unless something were to change very drastically in the market.
Well, and if something drastic does change, Steve, in Washington, you have 365 days to file a claim anyway. So we could go backwards if they do that. I don't see that happening, but anything can happen.
Yep.
And when you say something drastic, give us an example of what a drastic measure would be.
The government, enough people petitioning the government, enough businesses go into the government saying, hey, look at this. They pay for business income insurance and then they can't use it. Maybe if the government were to come down and tell the state, hey, the insurance commissioner, you're going to enforce that. That's the only drastic thing I could see.
And just to clarify that, there's been some Harvard Business Review and other research that says that would actually bankrupt insurers. No one's collected premium for situations like that. So neither Jerry or I believe that is the direction it would go. But articulating that that's what would have to change for something to happen. What I actually believe will happen is there's something called terrorism coverage. You probably don't pay much attention to it. It started after 9/11. It wasn't a thing. And now terrorism coverage is something that goes through the government. If you were to have me speculate with, I'm just another person, I'm not anybody that's a specialist on this. If I believe that there's a chance that if the government wanted to solve this problem going forward, like terrorism, they'd add pandemic coverage as something for you to opt into. And then it would be something that'd be federally backed from the government, because it doesn't pencil for any insurer anywhere to offer it without the government factoring. But that won't help us going backwards. That would only be true of what happened going forward.
Right.
Okay. Does my business income policy protect me while my business is temporarily closed due to COVID-19?
Jerry, go ahead.
Business income, no. For the same reason we said there's been no premium collected for it, and it was an unforeseen thing. The one thing I will say is that all of your other coverages are in place. The worst case scenario, your building catches on fire, you're still covered. Pipe breaks, floods your building, you're still covered. Somebody throws a rock through your window, you're still covered. But the business income, no.
Yeah, so it does require a covered peril to queue anything for business income coverage. And so one of the main questions is, hey, I have business income. It still has to hit one of those covered perils, and that's going to be true all the time. There's two very, very common exclusions or things in every policy. There's no like one company that's doing this differently. So one is it requires the peril before the business income is paid out. The other one is there's often coverage for if the government shuts your business down, but there needs to be direct physical loss to your business, to your location. So that doesn't mean they're telling everyone to stay inside. It means that let's imagine that there was a bad fire next to me and they thought my building was unsafe and the government shut me down. Then business income could potentially affect me because the government shut my business down. So that's what it's intended for. In addition, in the chat, I just put a nice link from the Washington Insurance Commissioner that walks through some similar questions to this for those of you that are readers.
A lot of us have become readers, I think. We're trying to disseminate the information that's coming out, so we appreciate that link, and that link will be on the Chamber of Commerce's website. So if you need to reference that again, just go to our chamber website under business support. We'll go ahead and help that with that. There was another question on here that says, am I covered if the government forced my business to temporarily close? You kind of answered that, Steve. So did you have anything additional on that question, Jerry?
Just for losses like damage to the building, that would be, again, to go back to the covered peril, name peril, fire, theft, damage. Those would be covered. Otherwise than that, unfortunately, no.
Okay. The next question is, if an employee contracts coronavirus, is my business responsible for related costs? If so, am I able to claim this?
Jerry, I'll let you go first. I'll fill in.
I don't have an answer to that.
So here's what I think. So again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to give you my best take here. So civil law says that if you do beyond what a reasonable person would do, that's what creates liability. Okay. So if I knew someone was sick or maybe even had symptoms and I sent them in a situation where they could potentially get my patron sick, I think that you probably have some liability. I think that you could for sure have liability in that situation. So if you were to ask me what is wise, is I would stay conservative in that. And then I do believe that most liability policies would cover that. I don't represent every carrier, but I do believe that liability policies and then their corresponding umbrella policies would cover people in situations like that. Now, one thing, questions come up is about other things that are more employment related, like would there be coverage for the employee? And then Washington has a monopoly in workers' compensation on the workers' comp and so that is all through the state of Washington. But in regards to like my employee went out and got patrons sick, I do believe liability would factor there. And my greatest suggestion to people is to remain conservative in regards to keeping your team members and patrons healthy.
So we've been hearing, and this is going to be a myth buster. I've started to talk about myth busting. So we understand also that if a business puts a safety plan together and puts signage onto their business and does not follow those safety plans that they've posted, and then a patron becomes contracted, there is also a liability that can be traced back to that business. Is that correct?
You're going to have to speculate on that one, and I'm going to go along with you on that. I would give an example of it. Just was at a customer's place the other day, and they have an outdoor rodeo arena, and they have a standard advisement, so that you don't follow that advisement. You're the one, you're making the mistake. They've told you if they don't have that advisement, they're liable. And if I were to put up some sort of a safety advisement, I would need to follow it. Yes.
I also add that people can sue you for whatever reason. It doesn't matter if it's justified. It doesn't matter if they're going to win. And so what you really want to do is you want to act in a way that all of your behaviors are defensible. But you can add all the signs, you can add all the waivers. That does not change the fact that you still can have liability. And so civil law is very clear. You need to act in a way a reasonable person would. And that sounds clear, but then what it's reasonable person is very, very gray. So in this situation, it's you've got to make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze in how you're operating your business and that you're getting the revenue needed to maintain in a time that's very difficult to do business. So if you're going to go open where people are potentially in danger and you're not doing all the sanitation and everything else, I wouldn't say it's worth it. So, but I'm very pro businesses doing what they can to maintain revenue right now.
I'll take the time too, for those that are participating with us, if you use the chat function to let me know if you have additional discussion points to this question, please go ahead and put it in the chat and we will monitor that so we can get some more questions to the panelists. So if you do during this discussion at any time have something additional that comes up, feel free to use the chat and we'll interrupt the conversation to address those. What do you recommend for coronavirus coverage?
We've talked about that one. I'm sorry, there just isn't anything right now, except for acting reasonable and prudent. That should be understood. And one of the basics, I'm sure Steve does this. Why would it be difficult to realize if you're not feeling well, stay home? Don't be coming into a confined. My office is 575 square feet. If somebody comes in here and starts sneezing and hacking, it's going to affect a lot of people. It could affect a lot of people. But right now, if you came in and asked for add to coronavirus coverage, I would just smile and say I don't have it.
Yeah, so it currently doesn't exist. I think that potential virus or pandemic coverage is something that would need to be legislated to exist. And I haven't even heard the conversation of it yet because I think people are just trying to get through the current situation.
Have you noticed an uptick in clients since the stay-at-home order began?
I saw that question before we started. I think it means about insurance clients for Jerry and I. And I've actually seen, we get a lot of our, I do like Jerry, I do commercial insurance and auto, home, life, and business. You're not gonna be surprised to hear that life insurance has had an increase. People have been oddly aware of their mortality and the risk. We get a lot of our auto and home insurance customers during real estate transactions, and those are kind of coming back into play. Things slowed down for a couple months, and those are coming back up. We have not had a ton of movement on commercial insurance. People are kind of just hunkering down and trying to maintain where they're at. So that's been my experience. Jerry, what about you?
Again, life insurance has been up. The commercial has been more renewals. I do a lot of contractors also, and this is a busy time for them. But as far as the home and autos, most people are just kind of sitting tight. You go over with them to make sure that they're covered and make sure they know that we're here. But a big ticket business, no.
How do my employees get covered for being a delivery driver?
Jerry, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, one of the biggest problems that insurance companies have is unrated drivers. And you might think it's okay for you to deliver Domino's pizza at night because you need a few extra bucks. But if you don't tell your insurance agent that and you get in a wreck, up until the insurance commissioner changed it a little bit ago, that would have been an uncovered loss because you didn't declare it. If you want someone to be covered as a delivery driver, call your insurance agent, say my employer, whoever is driving this car, his driver's license number is this, and this is what we're doing. Make sure your insurance agent knows about that, because either Steve or I want to lean across the desk and say, you're not covered for that. It's not a phrase we like to use.
Yeah, so most, and again, check with your own insurance carrier, most insurance carriers have extended delivery coverage on what they call a personal lines policy. So great example would be, I might go to a house in my car, but I'm an insurance guy. I'm not using my car for business greatly. So it's not really a big deal. But if I worked at a bakery and now that bakery delivers, that bakery, that's a different risk than what the insurance company intended to write. And I don't know if everyone's approved it. I know the Washington State Insurance Commissioner basically said, hey, insurers, cover this for the foreseeable future. I don't know if everyone actually did. I know that American Families said that if you're doing delivery during the pandemic, that they'll cover you on a personalized policy, but I don't want to represent everybody. So I just tell everybody to call whoever their trusted advisor is that they have their insurance with to verify on their personal insurance if that's covered. In addition, there's an endorsement, like Danielle, in the hotel business, there's an endorsement called hired non-owned autos. And so a great example would be if you have a team member that's just running to the bank in their own private vehicle, it'll cover for things like that. So you want to make sure that you have that endorsement on your policy as well.
Yeah.
It's very basic. If you wrote with somebody that writes commercial insurance, it's probably on there already. But it'd be a good one to double check if somebody had that specific question.
What are some ways a person can minimize their insurance costs during quarantine?
Ooh, I'd like to take this one. So there's kind of two big ones that I see. So like Jerry said that he has a lot of contractors, and the general liability premium on contractors or businesses like that, or in restaurants, it'll be about sales. Okay. Contractors is typically payroll. Sure. So let's imagine that my year ran from January 1st through January 1st. And now we're a little over a third of the way into the year. And I realized I thought my payroll was going to be $300,000. It might only be $200,000 now. I might be on pace for $200,000 and I'm in the middle of it. You can call your insurer and update your information of what you're going to do for the year, whether it's in sales or payroll, and you can update the general liability premium in the middle of the year. So one way is to do that in your business policy. The other big one is if you are using your vehicles differently, you can update how those are being used. They might be driving significantly less. You can probably park a couple, because if you're just going to the grocery store every once in a while, you can probably park a couple there. And then the other thing is, a lot of businesses that are retail may just have significantly less inventory. And if that's the case, you can really evaluate what they call your business personal property and update on that on your policy to the appropriate amount, so that you're just paying the correct amount rather than potentially overpaying.
See, I agree with Steve. One of the first things that I would do is, we call it storage. If you have 7 trucks on the policy and you're only using 2 of them right now, call your agent and have that put on storage. The premium is drastically different. The other thing that you could do is to raise your deductible. Some people have a fairly small deductible. Some people have a fairly high deductible, but that is something that drives premium, especially if you would jump up to, say, a $5,000 deductible. There's some real savings there. And a lot of companies are doing this, and Farmers is doing it right now. We're offering a 20% per month premium discount on commercial policies, and I'm not quite sure how long that'll last, but it's going on now.
Yeah, so I've seen different carriers do different things on that, because some commercial autos, especially right now, like are operating a lot more. There's a lot less cars on the road, but some are going even a lot more. So some that are in delivery and things like that are even busier. So that's been a little bit all over the place, and depends on types of business.
As you see from Allie, Steve, the endorsement, I think she was questioning, was prior to the delivery or the minimizing of insurance. So what was the other endorsement that you had?
I think, Allie, was it the hired non-owned autos? Was that the correct one?
Yes, that was it. Thank you.
Got it.
Awesome.
That one, I mean, that is as mandatory as good limits of liability, because you might think as simple as could be, hey, when you're on your way home, would you drop this letter off at the post office? Drop the letter off at the post office, pulls out and causes an accident. The police or the investigators are going to find out, what were you doing? I was dropping off a letter for Jerry on my way home. Guess who's on the hook for it? And it's like Steve said, it's cheap, and it's you have to have that.
So for employers that are allowing the flexibility of staff to work from home, but then they have the flexibility to go into their office, is this the endorsement that will cover them the to and fro?
It won't be to and from unless it's specifically related. So here, the example I always give is, let's imagine that one of my team members was running to the bank, and they hit a family of 4, and the little guy in the car couldn't play Little League anymore. They were in their personal car, they were going to the bank, and then on their way home from work. Just a regular, everyday thing. And when they found out, oh, wait, you were doing work for business in that time, people think businesses have all sorts of money, but we're learning right now is business is difficult, very difficult, that maybe people, margins were a little slimmer than what people who don't own businesses think that they are. And so I would get sued if it was in that situation. In addition to, it would go the person driving the car and their personal insurance primary, and then I would get sued as well. Yep. And so it would cover me for situations like that, up to my policy limits.
So what is the coverage from a commercial business standpoint for at-home workers? Anything?
So workers' comp is the same, and that's through the state. And I'm going to be the first to tell you that I'm not a specialist in it, because the state takes care of it. So, Jerry, I'm going to have you correct me on this one. Is if their life has not changed immensely, great example would be my employees are office workers. If they're office workers and they are doing things for work, that their risk should be pretty darn similar. So, but if their environment changes or their role is changing immensely, so let me get out of bounds here. Let's imagine that there was somebody who they got a PPP loan. They couldn't even be open, but they're trying to pay their employees to keep everybody employed. And instead of having them do office work, they're having them move their furniture at their house. That's a problem, because you've changed the actual role of what they're doing. And one is office work and the other one is movers, and they're not the same exact thing. So those are things that I would keep my eyes on about working from home, is if you change their role. But if they worked in the office at the office and they work in the office at home, it just is a home office, I don't see any concerns with workers' comp at all.
I don't see that either. The people that work at home, they have specific office tasks, and the vast majority of that is on the computer. I guess there's always going to be strange examples. Anything can happen, but those are going to be covered by L&I. And I agree with Steve. You know, I'm not going to have them overhaul the transmission or something. If they're doing office work, they're doing office work, and L&I is going to cover it. And we're a lot of this work from home stuff ours came from Los Angeles, which is where our head office is.
So we're about a half an hour into this. I'm going to give the participants an opportunity to, again, use that chat function if you have anything additional to add. I did notice, Steve and Jerry, that on these questions were very specific to brick and mortar businesses, but I would like to venture out a little bit to some commercial policies for some of the nonprofits that provide events. And if you can discuss a few things that maybe a nonprofit needs to be aware of. I know a lot of us are canceling some of the events, but some of us are hanging tight. We're really wanting some of these events to boost economy when we can. And so is there anything that we need to be aware of from a commercial policy on event insurance?
So event insurance is kind of its own game, and but they have very similar exclusions, if you've seen or found out. So what I think less than maybe insurance and more best practice, I think most contracts, especially if you are locking up hotel rooms or conference centers and things like that, I think you're going to see a lot of people put in contract language about pandemic or things outside of people's control. Because I mean, I know that I have an event and I have a consulting company with an event that we didn't have that language in our contract, and now we're negotiating on how we can put it out further, but we have to stay in the same hotel because we are committed to that hotel. So their way of being flexible with us is just moving the dates, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the same rate. It doesn't mean the same situation. But yes, those event-based, get a lot of people together, revenue creating or fundraiser creating things, they're problems. Like, they're really big problems. So I don't think I have a good answer to how to lean into insurance to solve that problem. But I know a lot of, especially that have a lot of deep relationships. For example, Ken's organization with Hospice Friends, where there's people that are deeply committed to the cause because it may be personal to them, are going with a lot of non-event fundraisers. So, hey, we love you. We appreciate how you supported us. Normally we do a get together and do a dinner. We can't do that now, but we still need to run this organization, non-event fundraisers. I know I just got a similar conversation with Kittitas County Young Life. So those things exist, and we're having to pivot to figure it out, but I don't know of a great way for insurance to solve the problem beyond what people are already doing right now.
Jerry?
All I can say is the insurance is still going to cover you. It's just not going to cover you for the virus. And one of the big issues is how do you work with when the health department said, no, you can't get together, that I mean, the insurance company is still going to cover you for the event if you have the event for the issues of liability. And it's just a struggle right now to figure out how you guys are going to raise some money. You guys meaning all the nonprofits and on the profits too. I was talking to somebody about the events that have been canceled and thinking about donations. Steve donates, I donate. I don't know how some of these outfits are going to run if we can't have events again pretty soon.
Well, we are at the close of all the questions. Is there anybody else that is in the participation can just ask a question? So if we held a large public event, what liability would we have if someone transmitted COVID?
So Ken, first thing I would do is I'd tell you to talk to your insurance carrier about that specific question. I would also put that question in writing, and I'd want the response in writing. And one reason why is because, so one thing that happens is, and Jerry's reputation is very strong in regards to following through with his word, but there's times where people ask their insurance agent who gives them the answer that they want to hear, but the underwriter or the person that pays the claims don't agree with what the insurance agent said. So it may sound very attractive to hear what you want to hear, especially in verbally, and that's why I'd want it written. And one reason why is because most insurance agents have $5 million of E&O coverage, and if they swung and missed and they were wrong, you'd have something else to lean on. So I do believe that there's potential exposure, and again, because I think people can sue you for anything. And so if I was leading a nonprofit right now, I would go really hard on conservative, on getting people together for things that aren't already planned. I would also be a person that was holding out for the ability to get people together if I already had a planned event. Personally, I probably wouldn't be planning an event in the near future if it wasn't already planned and booked. But I would absolutely try to execute the ones that I had planned that I was allowed to. And but people are very polarized right now. There's a amount of people that don't believe that they either want to get the economy going or they just don't want to be told what to do. And the other portion of people are like, what are all these people doing outside? So people are on either end of the spectrum, period. And I would get that in writing, Ken, from whoever does Hospice Friends' insurance.
Anybody else have questions for the panelists? Not seeing any. I would like to extend our thank you to Stephen and Jerry. We really appreciate this information and opportunity to ask these questions of you. The Chamber of Commerce, again, will have that link that Stephen provided earlier onto our website. So if you need to refer back to some of the questions that have been gone over through the insurance.wa.gov, you can find that information there. Stephen, Jerry, do you have any last words for the recording and for those participants that are with us today?
Well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to clarify some of this. As Steve said, there's sometimes differences of opinion. I will stand by the fact that if you have general liability, it's going to cover your event. And I will stand by what we said, that the coronavirus is not covered right now. And it's not going to be covered until they make some changes in the legislature, I think. But I just urge everybody to follow the guidelines and try to remember to work together. My dad used to say takes all kinds to make a world. We don't always agree, but we have to work toward what's going to be best for everybody here in Kittitas County.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think one of the most important things is to make sure that whoever your insurer is, that they specialize in the business that you work in. So I know that there's a couple of nonprofits on here. I actually know the insurer that Hope Source works with. They're very, very good, and they do what they do every single day. And if you're working with, what I say is, if you could give me all the tools to get underneath the hood of your car, but I promise you, you don't want me underneath the hood of your car. And you want to work with people that solve the problem that you have every single day. And so if it's someone that is heavily engaged in commercial insurance, these problems should be very comfortable for you to take to them to be solved. But just make sure that they truly are a trusted advisor.
Well, thank you again for joining us. If you would like to join us next week, we, I believe, and Gemma's probably going to shake her head no if I'm wrong, but we have another information session at 9:30 on Wednesday, and this session is 2 sanitation providers for deep cleaning and also a supply chain provider. So they will talk about how they are doing on the supply chain of sanitation and disinfectant products. So join us next Wednesday, 9:30, with Clean Image, Northwest Sanitation, and Gerald's. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.